Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Melanated Artist in Performance. Tonight, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jeremy Winston of the Jeremy Winston Chorale. He is the Associate Professor of Music and Director of Choirs at Central State University in Ohio. I had a great conversation, but let me preface it with this. We had to do this in like 2 or 3 parts. We recorded. We originally recorded earlier in the day, so if you're watching this, you'll see my glasses have probably changed a couple times, and so we had recorded something, and then we didn't really like the way that it came out, so we kind of did the back end of it first, and then we went back and did the front end of it. So just be patient with me in the editing process. This is going to be a video that I definitely will be spending some time editing. I apologize if there are some things that are repetitive, that you'll hear in the first half and the second half, but just know it was a great conversation. We talked about his upbringing and where he went to school, his experience, his musical experience, how he got started, where he is now. Like I said, he teaches at Central State University in Ohio, and he also has he runs the Jeremy Winston Chorale. And if you have a chance, if you have Spotify or whatever it is that you listen to your music on, go and listen to his music. He has done some absolutely just fantastic arrangements of Precious Lord. There's a piece called Orange Moon. There's an arrangement of Even Me. So it's some really great choral works. Go on YouTube to view some of his works. Really great to talk to, really easy to talk to, and I know that you'll enjoy this episode. So again, this is another great episode of Melanated Artist in Performance. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, and welcome to another great episode of Melanated Artists in Performance. And tonight I am speaking with Dr. Jeremy Winston of the Jeremy Winston Chorale, and he is the Associate Professor of Music and Director of Choirs at Central State University in Ohio. Tonight we're going to talk about his background and his origin story and how he got into music and just all those great things. So welcome. And we're going to get started with where you grew up and how you got interested in music.
Yeah, thank you so much, and for having me a part of this. And I'm so excited about this conversation. I think it's a very important one. Yeah, so I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in that area. That's where I, so to speak, cut my teeth in the music arena. I started off, doing music in my church. My mother was the organist, and um, and as the son of a musician, my parents wanted to make sure that I got into music, so they started me off with violin lessons, and I was also inspired by my family members who were singers and so forth, and that kind of got me into music from the start.
Okay. So you're in a musical family, and so now, uh, what instrument did you start out in, and then explain from there, like how you became a little bit more deeply interested in music.
Yeah, so like I said, I started off playing violin. That was my first foray. I started when I was 6 years old in first grade,
Hmm.
and started with the Suzuki method. And any violinists out there know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And that was just kind of what got me involved first, just with music. And growing up with singers, my mother was also, and she was an organist, a pianist, but she also was a singer,
Hmm.
and so singing was so much of a strong part of my upbringing. We would sing in the house. I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist tradition, and so in the Seventh-day Adventist tradition, on Friday nights, this we kind of look at Christianity similar to how, in relationship to kind of the older uh Judaism, uh older Jewish perspective on religion. So anyway, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, we would kind of honor the Sabbath, so to speak. So when Friday night came in, we would sing, and my mom would play. And as growing up playing the violin, I learned. I know now in retrospect. I didn't know this as a kid, but when
Hmm.
you play the violin, you have to kind of listen to the notes to kind of tune up. And so that combined with the singing that was always a part of my upbringing. I went to Seventh Adventist private school in Philadelphia, and we would always sing. And so that got me singing, having my family singing every day, playing the violin. It
Hmm.
developed my ear. Music was creating music from within
Hmm.
was very much a part of who I am. I mean, not to kind of necessarily just super fast forward and everything, but one of the things I've learned is that there are different perspectives of how people learn music. Some people learn music from kind of a muscle memory approach, and this is not a put down at all, but like if you're playing an instrument, something like that, you're learning music through your fingers, and maybe from a piano perspective, developing that muscle memory. When you're learning music kind of as a singer, you're learning it from the inside. How does it feel? Does this does when I sing this note, am I matching this pitch? There's so many different elements to how we learn music. And so I grew up kind of from the oral tradition style of hearing it and having to reproduce it without necessarily relying solely what's on the page. And So that was my upbringing with both with my mother as a musician, my grandfather as a singer, and so many other musicians in my family.
I think for me personally, since I started out as an instrumentalist, to me, reading music and singing is very difficult for me because I'm a clarinet player. I'm used to reading treble clef. My singing voice is bass baritone,
Mm.
and when I first started singing, people will always say, "Well, it's just about intervals. It's just about intervals." And for me, it's not. I can't. First, I got to get used to reading bass clef. One.
Right, right, right.
So, back then, the whole like interval thing, like the music theory part of it, was just difficult for me because I don't know what this note feels like in here.
Right.
So that I did a lot of, I would say, wonderful and great guessing
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
as to where I think and where I thought the melody would go.
yeah,
Um, to me, like trying to read pitch, and then and also I would always just kind of relate it to the clarinet.
yeah.
It was like, okay, I think this is where this note is, and transposition and all that kind of stuff. For me, singing is like reading how to sing it is just so difficult for me.
Listen, oh man, we could go down this road for hours, but no, but you're right. You're right. There's a different relationship, and there's one part of me that wants to do a study on how different students of different instruments kind of relate to music. Like I kind of feel like, so if we can think of music like a record, so to speak, and mastering music is in the center. We
Hmm.
all come from different perspectives of the circle, right? Coming to the center of mastering music. Some people come from the singing side where it's all ear.
Hmm.
They don't they've never looked at a piece of music in their life, but they
Yep.
understand music from the audible perspective. And then some people read it, and everything is physically, they have to see the note on the page or the rhythm written to understand what's happening. And
Hmm.
then you've got some people who are percussionists, right?
Yep.
Who hear from the rhythm, and I know have some percussionist friends who are great. And it's interesting because I can almost know a song that's written. I can't say I know for sure, but I feel
Mhm.
like I know that song was written by a percussionist, or that song was written by a guitarist, or that
Okay.
song was written by a pianist.
Okay.
Because they approach music differently, and we get sometimes a different output that is similar, right? You can always write it down, but it
Hmm.
has different feels. And to me, it's such a compelling conversation to know what inspires people, where they came from, because it sometimes results in different creations. Anyway, we're getting way into the weeds on music, so we're nerding out on just kind of
Right.
music.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
this is I love this kind of language. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um let's see. Oh, so after you are so you're in elementary, middle school, going into high school, what is your experience and thoughts as far as like your musical interest? Are you becoming more interested? Are you still trying to figure it out as you navigate through middle high school?
Yeah, so in high school, I went through a period where I played sports, and I still do play sports. Like I try to I run, I play ball, basketball. In high school, I was into football, and I really thought that I was going to be a football player, maybe, Um,
Hmm.
and I went to 2 years public school, and having grown up in elementary, K through 8, doing music, doing violin. Then I went to high school, and I was like, man, I'm gonna play football,
Hmm.
and I got really heavy into that. But I got into sports, but the place of where I was at, and it's important, you talk about this melanated podcast. I think this is an experience that I think is unique as an African American male. Is that the high school I went to was a public high school, large high school, had probably 1,500 students or something like that.
Hmm.
They, they I was really good in math. I
Hmm.
scored super high in math in standardized testing and super high in science. But they only saw me at the high school as a sports person, and I really only got any unique interest from
Hmm.
my teachers, or from my sports teachers.
Hmm.
Now I remember my music teacher. They were like, "Oh, okay, you can sing, but it wasn't serious. It was like, oh, you can sing. That's fine, nice,
Hmm.
right." But my sports teachers were the ones that had a lasting impact on my life, and my academic teachers kind of just was like, you
Oh
know,
wow.
yeah, that's maybe an exaggeration, maybe not, because as a high school freshman and sophomore, I don't necessarily. I think it was Maya Angelou's statement that said, "You may not remember what they did, but do you remember how they made you feel?" I
Hmm.
think that was her who said that.
Yep.
If I got that wrong, correct me. But I remember leaving there not feeling much value as an academic person, right?
Okay.
So I went 2 years in public high school where I was dead set on football, but my academics were terrible. My parents took me out and said, "You're This is not going well." They had the foresight to see that, and they sent me to a private boarding school, a Seventh Adventist private boarding school outside of Philadelphia called Pine Forge Academy.
Hmm.
And it is one of, I believe, the four last standing boarding all African American boarding schools for African Americans in the entire country.
Okay.
It was along the Underground Railroad, just like I said, near Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
But they have an amazing music program. If anyone is familiar with the Oakwood University Aeolians,
Oh yeah.
um, a lot of a lot of there's a connection to those two. And if you do some Google research, you understand that the Aeolians director from the early 2000s was the past previous director of the choir at Pine Forge, and then he left Pine Forge and went to Oakwood, and
Okay.
then after him, Jason Ferdinand, who kind of brought Aeolians to another level of recognition internationally, was
Mhm.
the choir director at Pine Forge Academy, and then went to Oakwood, and
Okay.
they're both African American, and they're both Seventh Day Adventists, and so it kind of has a natural feeding ground, but it also has a strong natural musical tradition.
Hmm.
Just kind of as a reference, if you're familiar with the group Take Six, the
Yep.
they started at Oakwood University,
Hmm.
but a couple of them, well, I know one for sure, um, went to Pine Forge Academy, and
Okay.
though they have a lot of ties there. Anyway, long story to say is that I went to Pine Forge Academy, and that's when I was able to pull from those roots of musical training and learning in my early years, and it blossomed at Pine Forge Academy with this really robust, strong choir under the direction of Dr. Lloyd Mallory, and that's when I learned, like, oh, okay, I can do this. I actually, I know how to read music. I began to teach myself how to play the piano
Mm.
because I loved music so much, and that's what kind of led me into music as a career.
Okay. Um, so now, as you are journeying through high school and in college, when is this really starting to like implant in your mind? This is something that I really want or need to do?
Yeah, it was hard because I always felt like, is music really going to pay me, like as in a career? Like, am I really going to have so I have a career in music. So I went to music. I got a scholarship to major in music. So that was okay. That was a motivation to say, okay, you make, you get some money, go to major. But at first I was a math double major. Um,
Hmm.
and as along the way, I realized, okay, this is going to take me too long to finish this. I made math my minor and
Hmm.
just completed in music. But even after I graduated, I still kind of wasn't sure. So I started studying for my LSAT because I said, I can go to law school. When I was in high school, I was on the debate team, and we won the Southeastern Pennsylvania championship. So I like to debate, and I said, well, maybe I can go to law school. And I
Hmm.
started studying for the LSAT. But then Dr. Nathan Carter, who was the then chair of Morgan State University's music program and kind of a really celebrated choir director along the East Coast, offered me a scholarship to do my master's at Morgan, as well as giving me an apprenticeship. So I
Hmm.
was paid and I got a scholarship. So I said, well, this is Providence. I got money. I'm gonna go ahead and get my master's in music. And then I
Hmm.
went to Morgan State, and I still not sure if this was going to pay the bills, but I knew I was good at it. I enjoyed it. But always trying to keep my mind and my awareness on what's next. I always had a little bit of doubt. I'd lie if I said I didn't.
How did your parents feel as you were
Mm,
going through this? Because sometimes in our culture, in our
right.
community, we if we are fortunate enough to go to school, there are certain expectations that, okay,
Hmm.
when you're done, this is what you need to do. Or even before you get there, it's like, okay, like what you were saying, is this going to be something that I can, provide for myself, provide for my family? Because, sometimes in families, they're saying, okay, you may major in this, but you better make sure you have a job,
Hmm. Right.
something to do if you're going to
Right.
contribute to the household, something like that. And music is not always, well, I'll say that in some careers, because of how we are brought up and also just because we're in survival mode,
Hmm.
it's a thing of, okay, yeah, music ain't it. You need to come out of here and get a job and, go work in a factory or go work in corporate America or whatever the case is.
Right. Which is absolutely fair, and I think it is. We as in our community, in our kind of history in this country, we have to balance the realities of the wealth gap, right?
Hmm.
And also the realities of passion, direction, inspiration, and dreams. You know,
Hmm.
and sometimes those two things may seem in direct contrast to each other. Uh,
Hmm.
and so for me, it tried to make me more vigilant and about what I was doing, um, um, and wanted to be the best that I could possibly be. So directly answering my parents, they probably, I hate to say it this way, but they may, you know, I think that they were kind of a little reticent. Okay, he's doing music. They never told me this, and I deeply respect them for that because, as a parent myself with a kid in school, I'm always
Hmm.
thinking about, are they going to have a job? The worry is always there. You're just like, oh, are they going to be okay? You know, um, but my parents were supportive of me, and they believed in my vision and my ability to push forward amidst my flaws and my a novice approach to things and all this stuff. They still were supportive of me. I never forget. There was this lady. I can never remember. I got to find her name. She was a lady in Philadelphia, and I used to go back and sing Messiah. And I was still young and wasn't as polished and as good at it.
Hmm.
Um, the arias "Comfort Ye, Every Valley" from Handel's Messiah. And I mean, she was supportive of me. She said, "You've got a beautiful voice. You could really do well." I studied as a classical tenor. I didn't
Hmm.
study opera, kind of that. But she said, you should really thank your parents that they've given you the support to do this, because not every family would support kids into going to something like this. And so I think that they were really supportive in all of this, and so that meant a lot to me and gave me the confidence to step out and to try to be the best that I can be without always looking over my shoulder and saying, "Am I going to be okay?" Because
Right.
you can't really work at your best when you're always nervous about, is this going to be okay?
Hmm.
Sometimes you just got to have the support and say, "I'm going all the way through it."
Hmm.
And so it was great to have the parental support, but it wasn't easy, and I'm sure that they were concerned.
Okay. Um, all right. So now we're
Can I
going
ask
to
you real quick? Yeah, okay, great. That's what I was about to ask you. So we're going to skip because okay,
right, right. Because I mean I got to do some cutting and pasting, so
yeah,
it's
yeah. Thank you for doing this. I hate to give you post production work. So
Mm-mm, no, no, no. It's all good. I need to practice anyway because I mean most of the stuff I can always just
yeah,
um,
what do you
upload.
use? What do you use? If I don't mind asking
I
for?
use Riverside.
Oh, they do. You do cut and paste on Riverside.
Hmm.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, you can. I can do it that way. I tried doing whatever's on my Mac. I forget the
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and I have forgotten how to get rid of stuff. So it's
Yeah,
like
okay.
it's too
Yeah,
much right now. So it's all practice. I'm learning by doing. So it's all good. I got the whole summer to do this, so it's
gotcha.
good.
Okay.
Um, all right. So now that we're in your corral moment here,
Uh-huh.
um, what? Oh, here we go. What is your long term vision for your group?
Wow, I'm so glad you say that because I'm really in a moment of preparing for my long term vision.
Mm,
So my background and my experience, as discussed, is in both in higher education, both from the administrative side when I was a chair at Wilberforce University, professor side when I was at Central State University. But in addition to all this, we've had the opportunity to do a lot of international experiences and performances, and so over the past 10 years since 2012 when we won the at the World Choir Games. We've been to Prague almost annually. Well, actually, starting in 2015, we started going to Prague, working with the Czech National Symphony Orchestra, Oscar Grammy award-winning orchestra, really one of the top-notch orchestras in the country and the
mm,
world. No
mm.
exaggeration. And also in Medellin, Colombia, we've worked with the AFIT Symphony,
Okay.
the Medellin Symphony, and we've worked with a number of universities, AFIT, which is a university, as well as Bogota University and so forth, and University of Antioquia. Anyway, what we've been doing is we've been taking individuals from across the country
Hmm.
abroad to experience kind of an international performance opportunity where we could share some of the gifts that have come naturally to us and
Hmm.
shared with the world. And I recognize that a couple of things that there are uh, really special opportunities to share our gifts globally, where
Hmm.
there is an insatiable appetite for what it is that comes out of America. And I am going to, even though I'm not going to say it's exclusively just to African Americans, but
Hmm.
definitely what comes from the African American musical experience, the
Hmm.
gospel, the jazz, the spiritual, the blues, this musical expression that is so natural to us that I learned about growing up singing in school. They love it. They absolutely love it. And so what I'm excited about is looking at higher education and music preparation, not just from a localized perspective from one place in America, but looking at it globally. So,
Hmm.
how can we take students who are uniquely gifted from various cities throughout the country and take them abroad and give them opportunities to study abroad, to perform abroad, to
Hmm.
learn abroad, to broaden their horizons regarding what it means to be a performing musician? And I think that there are so many opportunities that await abroad if we cast our gaze and not just look at just from one vantage point. So so our mission moving forward is to take these experiences and really make sure that we bring so many of the talent that just is sitting across the country in the United States and take them abroad and give them this educational experience in different countries and being able to share their gift at the same time.
I think that that is an extremely beautiful and just awesome thing to for you to do that, and that is one of the reasons why I know that I became a teacher. That's one part of it was because I was blessed to have that experience instrumentally and through vocally,
Mm,
because I my when you see when someone sees something in you and then they open up that door and you're just trying to figure out things. I was fortunate enough that my middle school band director, he picked me to be in the youth symphony. So I didn't know what the youth symphony was. My mom and I didn't know what it was. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let's go audition and see what this is about. And that was like the beginning of just all the doors that opened. Now, I will say that I was resistant at first because I walked in that door and I saw all those white kids, and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing
right,
it.
right.
Because I came from a middle school that was very diverse. We had everybody. So to go from that to
You're
all
the
these,
only one.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was a bit much. And my mom, she just said, No." She said, you're going to do this, and we're going to see what's going to become of it, because she always said, you never know who's watching you and what doors may open. So that, playing in Carnegie Hall, then I got to college and the orchestra went on a European tour. Then the following year, the choir went on a European tour. These are things I never thought that
right.
I would ever experience in my black black child, black man, me.
Yeah,
And I'm really Carnegie Hall. Some people spend their whole life just trying to get on that stage.
right.
So, and then to go to Europe twice, I thought, wow, this is amazing. So this is stuff that I can share with my students. When I started teaching in Milwaukee, I was like, okay, I got to tell these kids there's opportunities out here. You can't be a victim of your circumstance. You can do this, because like you said, we have so much natural talent and ability that is within us that needs to be shared amongst each other, and we need to have these experiences because black people are doing something.
Listen, and I think I see it as so many different opportunities. Number one, I think it's an untapped resource. Um,
Hmm.
Number one, and it's untapped is a stretch because a lot of big music businesses have tapped it and made killings off it for years. Uh,
Hmm.
but that aside, there are thousands, if not millions, of youth around the country who are who who not only would benefit personally from having their horizons broadened through this experience. And the same thing happened to me. I have to say, when I was with at Morgan, we did a 30-day tour in Prague when I
Hmm.
was at the summer of my first year of my graduate studies, and I never forget. I did not want to go. Like, we had just done a full year of traveling. I was tired
Hmm.
of getting on the bus. I did not want to go. We were traveling every weekend. I was like, and now I got to do 30 days in
Right.
Prague. I don't even know where Prague is, and I was like, and then we went, and I didn't want to come back. Like, I was
Mhm.
in Prague. I was like, yo, this is. I didn't want to come back, and
Mhm.
so when fast forward, I go work at Wilberforce and all that stuff, and then an opportunity came to work with the same orchestra, the same
Mhm.
group. Like, just kind of a random situation happened,
Mhm.
and I realized that opened my eyes, and really what opened my eyes to it is that in that kind of Middle East, it's not Middle East, but Prague is a little further west in Europe. It's not quite far as
It's
west
that
as
Eastern Bloc.
Italy. Yes, kind of Eastern Bloc, right? They're part of, I think, USSR, the communist state back in the day, and so
Mhm.
they have a different relationship with African Americans than the Western Europeans do.
Mhm.
So the Western Europeans, like when I think of Spain and in France and Italy and England, they relate to us a little similar to Americans, where it's kind of like, oh, you're an African American, like, oh, it's they actually appreciate. They gave me the baton to conduct the orchestra, and I'll
Mhm.
never forget when we first went. They asked me. They said, so what music do you want to do for this concert? And I was thinking, like, and I picked Porgy and Bess, and that's a whole nother story. I won't get into that, but I picked Porgy and Bess, that we do Porgy and Bess extras from opera, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so you're going to conduct it. And I was thinking, like, okay, you want me to conduct it? And they were like, yeah, we want you to conduct. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even a question. And they gave me the time, and not only did they invite me to conduct, they responded. They wanted to get the music right. It wasn't this kind of, almost, a wall up because of differences of cultures. It was, we were all in it together from day one. And I don't know. There's somebody out there who's listening to this who knows what I'm talking about. When you go to
Mm-hmm.
some of these Western European groups, who they look at us a little differently, suspiciously, like, "Are you really qualified to be here to be hold the conduct?" It doesn't feel like that there, or in Medellin, in South
Mm-hmm.
America. There
Okay.
is a genuine respect and love for the passion and the quality of music, and so then when we bring our singers, they go crazy. They love it. The orchestra's applauding. The orchestra's standing up. The orchestra's like, "Can we?" And then the next year, they're like, "Come back. We want you back. We want you to
Mm-hmm.
conduct again," because it's about the music, the
Mm-hmm.
cultural stuff that I think is so common in this kind of Western European approach to music doesn't exist in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask any jazz musician, any pro jazz musician, they make their money overseas. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, make their money overseas, and I think that there's just a different level of appreciation and love, and I think it is important for all of us, for everyone, to be able to see the really the respect that is had for the things that we have naturally grown up in, the music. I mean, I'm going on and on, but Antonin Dvorak, who came over here from
Yep.
Prague and
Yep.
studied, his whole thing was
Yep.
African American music is it. you
Yep.
know in today's terms, this is where it's at. The African
Mm-hmm.
Americans got something, and that's how he wrote
Mm-hmm.
the New World Symphony, and
Yep.
he wrote the going home melody on his New World Symphony to represent the replicate the spiritual, and he
Yep.
wrote about that. And again, it just shows like there's a different relationship. And I mean, I'm going to say plainly, it's a non-racist ideology. I
Mm-hmm.
I think there is are less than subtle um, approaches to racism, racist ideologies that are embedded in kind of the Western European music education and canon. That I hate to say, because I love a lot of it. There's a lot of stuff that I love,
Of
that I grew
course.
up on, that I studied, and I
Yep.
respect the people I respect. But at the same time, it's like, listen, I'm tired of being, considered. We should all be tired of being considered the second class contributors, second class contributors to the art form, when everybody's making billions off of it at the same time. So
I was just getting ready to say, second class citizens who have an influence over the entire world.
over the entire world. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, it's proof is, as they say, in the pudding. So
Yep. Yep. Um, so when you are auditioning people for your group, what are the qualities that you're looking for when you are selecting singers for your ensemble?
man, you know what? That's a great question, because it changes every year. Because every year we move up a little bit, right? And I say it this way: the expectation become a little bit more stringent,
Mm-hmm.
because first, how anything starts. I don't know how everything starts, but I know how this thing started. It started with a wing and a prayer. You heard my study before. You heard my my how it started originally, when
Mm-hmm.
I was baking pizza by myself to feed the group so we could compete.
Yep.
So at that point, I just needed anybody who was willing to be, in good spirits and come and sing and eat homemade pizza, for lunch,
Right.
for
Right.
lunch and dinner, right?
Right.
And and each year, it was a different thing. And but I think, number one, there has to be a passion for making good music. I think that's one of the big things. I think we all have a passion in different areas, different ways, and I love just kind of bringing it together and to say, okay, what do you have to bring? But there's something with that, though, that is immeasurable. Is not only do you have to have the passion, but you have to have the passion for working together.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so while I used to once say you have to be someone who's easy to work with, not a diva like person, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of it. But it's even more than that. It's like when we're a part of a group, you have to be able to say, you have to take the back seat and give and yield to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And be ready to step up when it's your time and be ready to say, hey, this is not my time, kind of thing. I mean, and this is after singing the right notes, knowing your music, all that stuff, singing in tune. I mean, like we need that. Like, let me just, but assuming all of that stuff is there,
Mm-hmm.
it's being able to understand that this is not about one person. I know, I told the story about how my name got on the group. Like, I'm not I shudder a little bit every time they say Jeremy Winston Corral, because it's like I don't feel like it's not about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I, I
Mm-hmm.
had I have to keep it that because we won. After we won, it's like you got to keep it that.
Right,
I can't
right,
change the name because it's.
right.
We have a scholarship program because we want to give back to people who are studying. We have. We're trying to build this program that student people can study abroad and it can be paid for, so
Mm-hmm.
that they can travel abroad, have these experiences, and not have to come out their pocket. We're now working back to your original earlier question, where people can get actually college credit for this. So not
Okay.
only are they going to different places, but my goal is that they will get college credit for spending 6 weeks in Prague, college credit
Okay.
for 6 weeks in Medellin, and
Mm-hmm.
that way we can help address higher education debt because it
Mm-hmm.
will be paid for. They're getting college credit along the way, and they're thinking globally. They're no
Mm-hmm.
longer thinking it just about, how can I make a living in this small city. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking at, oh, this is a big world, and maybe I want to, live in Medellin for a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and take a chance, because these are opportunities that are available to us that we would never know if the opportunities weren't presented and opened.
Okay. That
Abs-
great. That's a great answer. That I love what you're trying to do, because that to be able to get credit for something like that, that means a whole lot for
Yeah,
real.
that so that is my goal. I mean, we're working on right now. We're working to partner with some more universities, and offer a 6 week intensive. Hopefully, we'll start in 2027 with the Czech National 26. Yeah, 27. This is 26, 27
Yep.
with the
Mm-hmm.
Czech National Symphony Orchestra, to give credit, and they'll study with some of their orchestral members, and and stay in Prague for 6 weeks, and come back with closer to graduation, no longer in debt, and having spent a significant time in another part of the world with some of the best musicians in the world.
Okay. Okay. Um, how do you balance artistic excellence with community impact?
Hmm. That's yeah, that's a hard one. Artistic excellence, I think, has to be um considered in every instance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm being honest. There's some gigs when I think we have a standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to be honest. As a professional group, everybody's not available all the time, so sometimes I got my AAA plus team, right? Sometimes I got my AB team, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to decide, okay, what is my threshold? What is threshold? Which, like, we can't drop below this. We're not going to a C level.
Yep.
We got to keep it up. And I got to be honest. There've been some days when it's like, oh, all we excuse me, all we got is a C level team available.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. We want to mitigate that. But the more we do, the more kind of people come on board, the stronger we get, and so maintaining kind of artistic excellence in my mind goes along with that. Community engagement is a new piece for me, because I try to build new communities as we go along, and community is different now. I got to be honest with you, we're kind of in an in between, where there was a day, especially in the '90s, when community engagement was all about public performances. Now,
Uh-huh.
now community engagement is social media.
Yeah.
It's almost more social media is the quote unquote community engagement, and I don't know how that's going to end up, but that's a large part of it. So some of my focus has had to be, okay, how do I really impact the engagement social media wise, uh,
Hmm.
versus just public performances, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Social media, which I will still believe is the downfall of humanity, but yeah, it is the it is fortunately, when you use it in a positive way,
right,
then it will do some good. But it's just such an evil entity
it's the beast.
right
It's the
now.
beast. You got to feed the beast. You got to feed the beast, and even the precious Lord came popular on social media. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and so it's like I can't be so upset about it. you know
Right.
but at the same time, it's like there is a there's a falseness about there's an insincerity behind social media
Yep.
that I haven't quite been able to get comfortable with yet.
Yep.
Because, especially with AI now they got these videos. I don't know if you've seen these videos now where someone's like, I'm gonna show you 3 videos. Which ones are AI, which ones are not? Have you
Yeah.
seen? And it's
Yeah.
like, yo, I mean, you could go over three, or you could go through, whatever. I mean, because it's getting to the point where I see these videos of people quote unquote singing. And it's like, as a group, and I'm like, this is auto tuned. Like, this is clearly auto tuned. Like, if I were in person, I would be, it would not sound like this at all.
Hmm.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I think it's a bad thing for live performances, but but to me, this again, not to point back to what I was saying before, but it feeds the need for good live performance. Because I think there's still going to be a desire for live performance, and so I think with all the AI stuff, live performances, people who can sing live in person, I don't know how we're going to replace that. You know.
Well, and this
Well,
is gonna sound
you're gonna
crazy.
correct me. You're gonna tell me how, right?
No, no, no. What I think is crazy is that I think the Gen X and millennials are like is what's going to keep that kind of ideology and idea alive of knowing the authenticity of and respect of a live performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as we, me as a teacher, middle school teacher, so I unfortunately know all of the musical crap
Right,
that
right,
that that the students may like try and say, okay, listen to this, and I'm just like, I ain't trying to hear all that. But then what's very interesting is that if I play something from the 90s and even early 2000s, and the kids that just kind of perk up, and then I watch how they like know all the words, and I'm like, who's in your house? Who's in your house playing this music? Because I can tell which ones that the parents are playing that music all the time. Kind of like probably maybe like you and I was growing up. There was
yeah,
certain music that we listened to clean every Saturday, Sunday.
right,
You know,
right.
certain staples that you heard in the household: Anita Baker, The
But,
Whispers.
yeah, yeah. But for me, it was Michael Jackson. Well, when I went to clean, it was Off the Wall and Thriller. Those
They-
two albums were my cleaning music.
and it's interesting to when I have a discussion with my students about music and the things that they like, because I do genuinely want to know, because I'm just always curious. um and then it's a thing where I'm just like, I just can't see you all 30 years from now talking about, remember when Lil such and such, did that song and blah blah blah.
Right, right.
It's just not like it. The longevity is just not there. I think Mariah said something, or somebody was talking about like popcorn or microwave artists. They're
Yeah.
in for a minute or two and then they're gone. There's nobody that's lasting long. These the younger girls cannot sing a Patti LaBelle type endurance of just being on stage.
Just give them a mic,
Yeah.
somebody on a piano, and say grab the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and how many people can actually do that now? So I saw these I saw one post. You probably might have seen it. Peebo Bryson just passed away recently, and
Mhm.
and and I'll be honest with you. Ever since I was a kid, I thought People Bryson just had one of the best flat out voices. Like just,
Hmm.
I mean, he didn't have to do much. He didn't have
Right.
to do all the runs. It was just passion and energy behind the voice. And
Right.
someone was like, well, whenever we do this People Bryson's tributes, we don't need somebody singing and doing all this. We
Yeah.
need someone who can just flat out sing, sing a line. They just hold a note and like, and that's true. It's like I can't even know. I don't even know who. I mean, what's the dude now who did the tribute? Can we talk for a minute with Babyface? He just sang the national anthem for
Oh, Avery Wilson.
Avery Wilson. He could probably do it. He could
Hmm.
probably do it. I mean, like, because I mean, but I think he could do it. But again, he's not like mainstream pop. Like he's
Right.
big, but he's not
Right.
mainstream.
Right.
Um, these big pop artists, like it's just not that anymore, and it's disappointing. It's really disappointing. I feel bad for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to that, I'm sorry. My daughters will, if you were teaching my daughters in middle school, they would be able to sing Lauryn Hill. They'd be able to sing Erica Badu. Obviously, I'm a big Erica Badu fan. Michael Jackson. They know all of that. So
Yep.
yeah, they're getting it. They're getting it. They're getting some of the stuff.
Yep. Yep. That means that somebody at home cares for them. I always tell them like you got a parent that cares. They care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, how do you go about preparing your singers for international performances and competitions?
Yeah. So the great thing about it is that you know you asked me earlier how do you pick people. I know my singers. I know them, and I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are, and then for me, that's kind of my big responsibility because is to really pick people who work well together, do well together, and
Hmm.
so a lot of it is sending them music, choosing music that I know that they can excel in, that they will
Hmm.
excel. And the thing about it is, I'm always refining the group so we can be as nimble. Like if we need to do a classical gig, boom, we're ready to go do all classical. We need to do a pop gig, boom, we're ready to do that. Spirituals, ready to do that. So we send in the music and we have a couple meetings, Zoom, and we schedule rehearsals ahead of time. And people are expected to come ready to sing to with their music learned. And most of the time that's what happens. Sometimes we have people unprepared, and we kind of got to deal with that as it goes. But for the most part, and that's how we kind of weed out who's good to go.
And so that basically leads into my next question as far as like um how do you go about choosing the rep? Like, because when I had asked you earlier, as far as like when you're composing, and there's always a song or something that you have on the shelf, ready to go. Is that kind of like possibly the same situation? It's like, ooh, you know what? I think I want to do this piece. I think this might be good. Does it depend on where you're going, where you're traveling to? You know.
Yeah, it does. It has a lot of different things. There's usually like a arcing arching uh theme that directs certain things, and for a specific gig I may have to throw something else in there just to kind of meet a need. uh,
Hmm.
so this year, we did in Philly. So right now we're kind of doing the 250 year of America thing. Well, but we're doing it from the African American perspective, right? So, we did a concert at the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia uh,
Okay.
back in January, and the whole theme behind the concert was taking America on a 250-year journey. We did the same concert in Denver and one other place. We're supposed to do it in Dayton later this summer.
Hmm.
Sorry. And what we do is I select music that intentionally takes us on a journey from the spiritual. We do different things. We did like Harry told the song from the movie
Period.
based on Harry Tubman, Stand Up, Harriet. That's right, Harriet, Stand Up. Way um, so we do that, and 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 I talk about it, and I talk about the spiritual. I talk about, and then we do some R&B. We did a Sam Cooke song. We do some stuff from Porgy and Bess, just to really kind of show the progression of African American music from early on to now. And then, again, I throw a piece in there from time to time.
Hmm.
Um, we're supposed to go to Prague next year to do another 100 voices in Prague with the Czech National Symphony Orchestra in 27. And actually, I don't even know what I'm going to do for that. I'm trying. They asked me the other day, like, "What are you going to do next summer?"
Mm.
I gotta come up with a theme now for that. So I kind of take it as it comes.
Okay. Um, what did winning the World Choir mean to you? The World Choir Games. What
Mhm.
did that mean to you and for the your organization?
Well, for me, more than anything, it was this is so early on in our existence. I mean, we weren't even in existence. I mean, I told you the story how it happened. It was just like
Mhm.
whatever. But it was something that we just kind of took and we ran with it. And I had no idea what was next. But I had no idea what was next. But I knew something was next. So
Okay.
what it meant to me was that all right, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is actually anything. If
Hmm.
this is just a fluke thing in nature and it's going to just disappear, right? Or if this is
Hmm.
something that's going to endure moving forward. I told you, Gregory Darty had mentioned that to me. And I guess I remember him saying that because I think that also played a role of a responsibility, like a responsibility of, okay, we did all of this. We practiced, we spent nights in people's houses, we ate, bad homemade pizza, we did that. Like, you can't let this drop now.
Hmm.
And I had, like I said, I had no idea what was next, but I can tell you what happened next. So that was in July. In December, we went to the White House and sang for Obama
Hmm.
and Barack and Michelle Obama. And that again was like kind of reinforced. Oh, okay, this is something. We got it. We got a name now that's been at the White House.
Hmm.
And then we did something overseas. And a small concert in Germany, right? And then it's like, okay, we did this overseas, and then eventually things started to happen where I would go to a university and say where I worked at Wilberforce or Central State. It was in between there. I left Wilberforce to go to Central, and you know either university wasn't able to do something, so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to use the chorale to do this because this could be an opportunity. And then
Hmm.
so things started to happen, and so it meant to me, I felt like, if anything, it was like the push in the back that a skydiver may have when they're jumping out of a plane. Right, it's like you don't know exactly what's about to happen next, but it pushed me out and it said, all right, this exists,
Hmm.
so let's go forward. And since then, we're a nonprofit and 501c3 and have done more things.
Okay. How do you incorporate history and storytelling into your compositions?
Oh, wow, history and storytelling in my compositions, it depends on the composition. So I did, this is an arrangement, it's not exactly a composition, even though it's kind of like a composition.
Hmm.
We did, on our album, The Strange Fruit. I don't know if
Hmm.
you heard that, Abram Meerpol's Strange Fruit. And so, even though we based it loosely on the melody, it's really a composition. But
Hmm.
just when I think about it, storytelling, this is my idea of storytelling. It started off with "My Country 'Tis of Thee,"
Hmm.
but in the minor key,
Yep.
and and I kept on hearing that phrase in my mind, "Land where my fathers died."
Hmm.
Um, oh man, I just remember the land where my fathers died. Obviously we think of it, land of the Pilgrim's Pride, from every mountainside let freedom's ring. I didn't include that part, but if I saw the video, which I believe they did take it off of YouTube because I used some pictures of lynchings in it, but on Facebook it's still up.
Hmm.
But um, I did it in a minor key, and I was basing it on the phrase "land where my fathers died" because, yeah, obviously the land. This is also lands where our forefathers have died, but just
Correct.
from a very different perspective. My country is of the land where my fathers died. Is talking about soldiers dying for freedom. Our
Hmm.
fathers were killed, unjustly, and
And they
in
weren't free.
murder. Yeah, right.
Right.
Uh, so to me, that's a form of storytelling.
Hmm.
It's in a different way, but it's, in my mind, I like to look at it as a form of creative storytelling based upon what exists, but putting it in our context.
Um, as a composer, where do you find inspiration for your new works?
Man, it just I don't know, and I hate to say it that way. I'm not being evasive. I just don't know.
Mhm.
They it, it'll come up from just something. Sometimes it's somebody asks, "Can you write a piece and think about this?" And it's like, okay, I got to do it, right? And then I got to go in search of inspiration. Okay, where are you?
Mhm.
I need this. I need this. I did a piece for so I did a piece. I wrote a piece this past summer that we did with the Czech National Symphony Orchestra called Hope, and this was celebrating 10 years. Well, more yeah, it was 25. I started going to Prague in 2015, so 25 last summer. It was 10 years, and so
Mhm.
I did a piece called Hope that kind of I tried to marry the spiritual, idea of improvisation with a Czech song, and I used I believe it's Smetana. Smetana wrote a piece called oh
The
goodness,
Moldau.
the Moldau, the
Yep.
Moldau. Right. And I took the Moldau, the theme, da 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 da. Right. Yeah. No. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I took that song and I kind of tried to do it in like a spiritual form,
Mhm.
and I'll send you a recording of it. I'll send you a recording of it, so you can have it. But it married that, and I had a soprano sing it, and I wrote some lyrics for that in both Czech and English, and it
Mhm.
talked about overcoming, challenges and difficulty because, of course, in Prague they have a history similar, in some respects, not quite as a brutal as slavery, but in definitely repressive governments, and they fought for freedom and so forth. So I felt to kind of build on that theme of hope, that was an inspiration. So I used that kind of melody as the guide for it,
Mhm.
which and so, but that's unique. I mean, like that's for one specific thing, and that was
Mhm.
and so everything becomes different.
Do you have melodies that just kind of come to you just randomly?
Yeah, randomly throughout the day. I should write them down when they do. I sometimes wake up and I'm singing a song, I'm singing a melody. I've had dreams of like melodies, like this was a dope melody, and I wake up and it's just boom gone. But I feel like it comes back to me like a week later, and then I try to write
Um,
it down. Yeah,
uh,
that happens. I've probably lost more melodies than but I find that's not uncommon. I've heard a lot of composers who talk about that they have melodies that they need to write down. Duke Ellington
mhm.
talked about that as well.
Mhm.
And if you don't write it down, it's gone. You know.
Well, now I'm not a composer, but again, with a musician, the
Yeah,
brain
yeah,
that I have, there are some times that I wake up in the middle of the night and I turn my phone on and I just press record and just sing whatever it is because it's just right there. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me sing into this. One day, maybe I'll write something. Maybe it'll
yeah.
come back to me, whatever. So yeah.
Listen, when you say you're not a composer, then I push back on that because that is I composing is probably 10% inspiration and 90% grueling hard work, right? Because 10% is like, oh, this is interesting, and then the rest of it you kind of just got to get in there, and then it's like putting a puzzle together. It's
Hmm.
frustrating. This piece
Hmm.
looks like it's going to fit, and then it doesn't. Then you got to go back and work this and work this and work this. What Quincy Jones I think said that you know we will a composer will spend agonize over one note, and like you're writing something, and it's like, do I want this note in this chord? Like you want this chord, but
Yes,
one note changes everything,
it does.
and it's like you'll agonize over that one note,
Yep.
and it almost feels like you almost feel like I almost feel like I want you like you're portraying somebody like if you pick the wrong note. It's like in
Yep.
the movies when they say don't cut the green wire, cut the blue wire, and it's like
Yep.
everybody's life depends on cutting the green wire. It's like
Yep.
you got to pick the right note, and yeah, anyway, so
Well, I just find composing just very intimidating because I just am not. I just
well,
don't
so do
have
I. Welcome
that.
to the club, man. Welcome to the club. It's
Yeah. some people just, they can, well, whatever. Yeah, I just find it intimidating.
Now,
So
I would say again, no, but I would just stick with them and say I think no one feel. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are those people out there who just feel like, oh, this is great. I don't think anybody feels like so because composing to me is like singing. You are putting something on paper and you're giving it to the world. Like I thought that this sounded nice. What do you think? Right? And I mean, like that. I feel like you're just putting yourself out there for someone to be like, "What? Like, you thought
yeah.
this sounded nice? Huh? What? Like what?" I mean, that's what it feels like. And they may say, "Oh, this is good," or they may say, "Yeah, go back and try again." So anyway, it's. I think that's you're in good company. So write it down, man. Write it down. Write it down, Titus.
Yeah, yeah. One day I will. One
All
day
right,
I will. Let's see. What are you most proud of as an educator?
man. What am I most proud of as an educator? I am. I mean, it is. I'm searching for the words that capture something to the effect of watching, knowing that students know that I have their back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I'm most proud of. I mean, because every student you have doesn't turn out to be a great success. So I have some that I really I think are really happy, and some of them are have regrets. But I think more than anything, the fact that both of those students could come back to me and say, Mr. Winston, this is how I feel,
Mm-hmm.
because they trust me and they know that I want the best for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I mean, that's a weighty thing to to kind of shoulder as a professor, because you get so many students. But you know, yeah, I mean, I think that's it, and to be able to help guide, and I think I'm trying to say the same thing, maybe a different way, help guide some of these students through a precarious time in life. I mean, those early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I think for everybody is a very interesting time period in our development, and to
Mm-hmm.
be able to guide them from there to say, okay, here is where you can now, here's where you need to be, and here's how you can be as successful as you can.
Mm-hmm.
um that's to me is one of the more pref- regardless if they're excelling in music or they're just excelling in whatever it is that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It no matter what, just if they feel somehow empowered and strengthened, that to me is significant.
Um, if you could leave one lasting legacy through your work, what would it be?
Oh man, an honest challenge of what we're doing. The honest answer, or at least I can't say that what I'm going to do is going to give the answer,
Mm-hmm.
but at least the pursuit of the answer of what the hell are we doing, and like in terms of what are we providing for the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I get frustrated, and this is my answer now. Maybe 10 years from now, if I'm God willing, if I'm still here,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a slightly different answer. But right now, I want to be sure that I'm not going, that I'm not just occupying a space just cause, but that
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually trying to do good so the next generation is in a better situation than I am in, than
Mm-hmm.
our generation has been. I feel like my grandparents did that for my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like my parents' generation did that for me, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to do it for the next. And everything looks a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be able to, in my time in higher education, at HBCUs, and in music, in this little kind of narrow corner of our world, and this, I want to be able to say that, you know, I tried to make it better, and that hopefully, in asking the tough questions so that we can get it better for the next generation.
That was good. That was a great answer.
I hope so, man. Thank you.
um, If you could have dinner with any composer or musician, past or present, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh gosh, and you
It
sent
could,
me this.
and it could be one person. It could be 10 people.
You sent me this questions too. One composer, dead or alive? It's got to be a composer, huh? Um,
No, it doesn't. It could be a musician.
I mean, you know, I mean, it's hard to not just go to my favorite musician because I don't because they could be jerks, right? Like, right? Because I can sit with them and I'm like, this is a waste of meeting. Like this person is an absolute this person's an absolute idiot. Like I don't know why I sat with
But,
you wrote
but see, this is your pick. This is not,
right.
you know.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's my pick, but then I could be disappointed with the pick. I guess I could pick him and realize that this he or she was just an absolute, you know. Oh man, who would I? Um, I think I so this is going to be kind of it'd be either be Ravel, Maurice Ravel, or Claude Debussy
Oh.
because, and this is going to sound super selfish because I think that they stole from African Americans.
Oh wow.
I know, and I want to know. I really want to know the level of influence that jazz music had on their writing,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
because I feel like it's underappreciated, or maybe even be Gershwin,
Mm.
because there's stories of Gershwin that he spent in Harlem,
Yep.
and we already know that he took from William Grant Still's Afro American Symphony, the I think the third movement, to write I Got Rhythm, bum 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 bum. Right, he
Mm.
quoted that, and I mean that's I Got Rhythm. He took it from that, and I would be interested to know, like honestly, like tell me how we want to know, like, because everything is, or maybe and maybe it's Dvorak, right? And
Mm.
it's self-serving, but I want to know, is it hyperbole as an African American that we
Mhm.
feel like, oh, they took it from us, or like I want to know, did you really take that from us? Is that really inspired? And not that it changes anything, because we all are inspired by other musicians. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
I did a video on when I did Orange Moon, the opening track of Orange Moon. There's this, I don't know if you saw, but there's this little figure I played on the piano where it goes ba da 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 dum, and
Mhm.
it's and it was taken from Maurice Ravel's Pines of Rome. No, no, or no, not Ravel, or Spighi,
Speaking.
or Torino de Spighi's Pines of Rome, and I
Mhm.
quoted it intentionally
Okay.
from Pines of
Right.
Rome. I love that piece,
Right.
and and so anyway, the point is we're all inspired by it, so it's not a point of just saying, "See, I told y'all so," to wagging my finger at anybody, but it's just to 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 know as to know what I feel like is already true, is that we all inspire each other, right? And
Mhm.
I think if
Mhm.
some people told the story, our music wouldn't inspire anything, but violence and all the things that are bad,
And
and I
laziness and slothfulness, because you know
right,
it.
right, exactly. I want to hear from the horse's mouth, like for real, like be honest, be honest, that kind of thing. There's also, and Vladimir Horowitz, who is the pianist,
Mhm.
the famed Russian pianist. I love his playings of Rachmaninoff and so forth. But the story was told that he missed a performance or was late to a rehearsal or something because he heard Art Tatum playing in a jazz club, and was blown away that he was blind. Art Tatum was legally blind, and what he could do. So I want to know if that's true, or if that's amazing. I'd want to hear those stories. So I'm sorry. That's
All that look, listen. When you said Debussy,
yeah.
the first thing that popped in my mind is, yeah, I'd like to talk to him too and say why.
Right.
Why? Because the music, it's like, man, the music that you composed, yes, it is great. However, I'm a clarinetist. Can you not put everything in like six flats and
Yeah.
like
You know,
18,000 sharps? What?
right. Right. That's he does. He for especially for your transposed instruments. It makes it difficult for you all.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh,
So the was it the Premier Rhapsody, which is
oh yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
huge clarinet piece.
yeah,
And there were several times that my my teacher was like, "We're going to do this," and I'm like, "No, we're not. We're not doing this. I am not doing WC."
yeah,
Yeah. So good choice. Good
yeah.
choices.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
The way that you presented that, it just made me see. Now I have to go do some research, and I got to listen to some music, and then be like, did he steal? This is very interesting. I got to listen to this closer.
Yeah. Oh no. And so it's the thing about it in terms of Gershwin. Like it's not even. I mean it's in history books that he quoted at the very least quoted that
Hmm.
bum 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 bum
Hmm.
bum 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 bum, and I think he added a little type bum 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 bum. I think he added that, but yeah, and it's but that's the thing about it is that's so much of what music has been. Mozart quoted other people the Dies Irae theme. Franz Liszt is another person. I'd want to talk anyway. But everybody quoted everybody, and so for me, it wouldn't be a sense of an offense. Like I'm not offended by it, but it just it
But it
it
makes you
uh,
say,
it just
I'm wondering.
underscores the narrative. Like okay, so anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, if you weren't in music education, or if you weren't an educator, what other job would you be doing? And outside the corral. So if you weren't doing either
Music
one
at
of
all.
those, what is it?
If I wasn't doing music at all, is what you're saying.
Right. Yep.
It'll either be I always wanted to be an astronaut. Astronaut was my first did like dream as a kid. And I
Hmm.
remember thinking, I wanted to do math. Math was my first original double major, then became minor. So I said, oh, maybe I'll be a math teacher, that kind of thing. But math, I enjoy that. So it either would have been, but in realistic terms, from college on, I think astronaut was kid stuff. Either been an accountant or a lawyer. Like I said, I started studying for my LSAT, and I was legit, really about to do my LSAT until Morgan came and was like, "Hey, we got a master's program. It'll pay for your schooling." And it was like, "Oh, free college, free masters. I'll take it. Music, I'll
Hmm.
take it." But I was prepared to do an LSAT, so
Okay.
I probably would have been a lawyer. Probably a
Okay.
lawyer. That's where I had probably more of the energy in that direction.
Okay. Okay. Um, what do you enjoy in your free time? What brings you joy?
So I enjoy um really enjoy time with my family. I've got three daughters, and I remember growing up, time with my parents was special.
Hmm.
So, I always try to make myself available to drive my kids to school, to camps, to everything. I like being available to that because even though it's just like a 15-minute car ride, like those car rides for me was as a kid, I like to talk. So I used to just
Hmm.
talk. I talk my mom and my dad's ear off, and I think about those as just kind of special moments,
Hmm.
as insignificant as it may seem at that time. I've learned so I like doing that. I play basketball. I run. I used to play squash a lot because I'm in Dayton and there's not a lot of sports. I'm a competitive person, so I
Okay.
like anything that can be competitive wise. I got back into lifting weights. I did when I was playing football. They trained me on lifting weights, and so I'm pulling that back as I get older. I realize I need to, do all the things to try
Yep.
to. So I mean, those are between family and playing and sports. That's it.
Okay. Squash. How did you get into that?
It's well again. So Dayton is interestingly enough kind of a major city for squash, which is
Hmm.
weird.
Okay.
Older version of racquetball for anybody who doesn't is not aware of it. But it's one of my birthdays, my wife bought me a gift to like a Dayton racket club. It's kind of this one of these clubs where you do and
Hmm.
I thought it was a squash club. I thought they had a squash court, but it was I mean I thought there was a racquetball court. And
Hmm.
I got there and when I said, well, I'm going to learn to play racquetball since I'm a member of this club. And it was like, no, it's not racquetball, it's squash. I was like, okay, well, we'll learn how to play squash. And I
Okay.
played it. And I mean, I played it pretty faithfully for a good decade, and I became ranked in the city of Dayton.
Oh, okay.
Just yeah, just
Okay.
become competitive. I played every day, you
Okay.
know, and it was, it's fun. It's a good fun sport.
Okay. And then the last question: what is next for you? What do you have? What are your upcoming projects, presentations?
Yeah, so we have a couple of concerts coming up. One in Atlanta and at the end of September, and one in Philly also at the end of September. The last 2 weekends of September, and you can check our website for some more details on that. It should be out shortly.
Mhm.
Um, we have Messiah. We're supposed to be doing also back in Philly in December. The big thing that we're working on is next summer, and I'm really kind of devoting my time in building this international study abroad program in Prague for 2027.
Mhm.
And we're actually recruiting students now. We have a scholarship that we are just about to promote. I don't know when this is going up exactly, but it would have been just started or anyway. And so we have a scholarship that program that we're going to provide for students to apply for so that they can get it for the fall semester if they're majoring in music, and we're going to do it again for the spring. So we're looking forward to that, and we do annual concerts with Habitat for Humanity in DC,
Okay.
uh, and some other ones, and so we've got to, but next summer is kind of the big thing we're really focusing on.
Okay. All right. That is great. Um, Thank you again for your time today, and all the cut and paste and craziness
Uh,
that happened.
thanks for being flexible and kind on this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that I really appreciate you giving your time. I appreciate you and your talent that you are letting the world see. Your music is just absolutely just beautiful. And if I'm ever able to either get to Philly or whenever you're in this area, because my mom soon will be living with me, I know that she definitely will enjoy listening and hearing some of your compositions and the performances. So.
Thank you
uh,
so much, man.
all right, so everybody, this was another great episode of Melanated Artist in Performance with my great discussion with Dr. Jeremy Winston at the Jeremy Winston Chorale. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you. And also look forward to another wonderful episode of Melanated Artist in Performance.